Okay, so when I came to Florida in 2004, I had a full head of hair. Then I started working on smutgrass. Now, so I shouldn't have been surprised that this species has been so difficult to control, because Dr. Hodges in the 1950s was working on this species. Dr. Mislevy worked on this species. Then I came along, and I'm still working on the species 20 years later. So it is a difficult species, but I think there's a lot of reasons that it is. Number one is it produces a lot of seeds. So one plant produces up to 30,000 seeds a year. If you mow that plant, it produces more seeds. So think about that too. If you let it go, it produces seeds once, and it kind of just goes into like this dormancy. But if you mow it, you make it flower and seed again. And it's amazing. If you go mow it right now, even this time of year when we're dry, it will flower within 2 weeks and have seed within 3 weeks. So that's why the species has been so prolific over time. So we've tried a lot of different things. My first PhD student, we looked at total renovation, we looked at fall roller chopping, and we looked at just herbicide application. All right? So what we've determined is when you introduce tillage, you tend to get more smutgrass. Okay? So if you renovate a pasture and you think 2 years later I'm going to have a great pasture, you're only going to have a great pasture 2 years later if you make a herbicide application in the first year after planting. Otherwise, in 2 years, definitely by 3 years, you're not going to be able to tell that you did anything to that pasture. So this pasture behind me is a great example of that. I've done work out here for about 10 years, but usually further on down on the property. They leased it out to a watermelon grower, then the watermelon grower overseeded it when they were done. The next year, I talked to them and said, hey, let's put out a Velpar application. They're like, our salesman said it's too early. I said, no, let's go ahead and do a Velpar application. Unfortunately, they believe the salesman. That's okay. That's up to them. Unfortunately, by year 3, the smutgrass was back to its original densities. So, over time, I feel like we've done enough where we can say, okay, if you do this, we can do this, and we can get it at bay. Can we 100% get rid of it? No, not ever going to happen. But we can manage our pastures better than what we've been doing. If you looked at posters this morning, so I talked about fall roller chopping. If you looked at posters this morning, there was a poster on chopping pastures for broom sedge and smutgrass. 2 different locations, well, actually 3. One location didn't have any weeds whatsoever for some reason. The second location had both smutgrass and broom sedge. That location in Okeechobee, they did see a decline in broom sedge and smutgrass density. This location where we roller chopped in the summer, we saw no change in density, but we saw a change in ground cover. So, okay, we didn't decrease our number of species, but we're at least allowing our desirable forage a chance to grow and try to take it over. So I believe with fertilization after that point, you would end up with some more competitive Bahia grass and hopefully take that smutgrass over. Probably need to incorporate a herbicide treatment in there as well. All right, so herbicide treatment, what is it? Does anybody know? Velpar, right. That is the primary herbicide we have for selective smutgrass control in Bahia grass. Now, what we've learned with that product over the years is that it is extremely finicky. And we have to have the moon, the stars, and the sun all aligned perfect for it to work, it seems like. So, what we've determined is if you get less than 1/4 of an inch or more than 3 inches within a week of Velpar application, you do not get good smutgrass control. If you're within that 1/4 inch to 3 inch window, you tend to get 70 to 90% control. Okay? So that's an issue, right? If I'm spending $60 an acre to control smutgrass and I get less than 50% control, you're a little bit aggravated. But unfortunately, that's what happens. We can't control the rainfall that we have, but we can make good guesses, right? So if we know there's a tropical system coming, I probably don't want to spray Velpar that week. You know, some logical decisions like that will be helpful. We've also tried adding some surfactants to the mixes as well, and they're really mixed results. Unless we're doing it weekly like we did with our rainfall studies, it's really hard to tell if they're really helping or not. Some of my producers say a couple of the products work great. They're happy with them. I'm not going to tell them not to use it if they think it's working for them, but my studies aren't showing that it is working. Okay. Another one is with ground applications is sprayer output. My research has shown that if we go below 20 gallons per acre in our sprayer output, our control of smutgrass declines as well. So then my friends in the drone industry come along. Okay? Does anybody know what the output is of drones is by chance? Okay, we're putting out at least 20 gallons per acre with our ground-driven equipment. Most drone applicators are going out between 2.5 and 10. Most of them are at 5. So the guys that were here this morning, Precision Agriculture Services, contacted me last year, and we did some other work off-site. As I needed them to prove to me that it was going to work on broadleaves, right? So we had them spray dog fennel fence high and compared it to our ground-driven equipment and saw no differences whatsoever. So great. That was really cool to see. It was really a neat experience. So I was like, okay, we're going to put you to the test. We're going to try smutgrass. But caveat is to this. Aerial applications of Velpar to pastures is not legal. Okay? It is legal in forestry, it is legal in sugarcane, but it is not legal in pastures. Okay? So, this is purely research. And I cannot make a recommendation of using a drone at this point in time. However, this is the only time I've seen a sprayer output less than 20 gallons per acre work. Okay? It's hard to see the stakes on the other end of the field, but where you see the thistle really tall, the thistle there is because I killed most of the smutgrass in those plots. And in fact, if you look beyond this study area to the west, that was a commercial application about 2 weeks prior to us doing this experiment here. So I wanted to show this because I want people to talk about it, even though it's not a legal thing, because we're trying to get with FDAX to get a special local needs label for drone applications of Velpar and hexazinone. So I figure if you happen to be talking to FDAX personnel and say, hey, I saw this at a field day, this is really working, it's something for them, put a little bug in their ear. Now, we have more research to do. My colleagues with the drones, they've been actually spraying this throughout the year. They're getting good activity, even in periods with little rainfall, which is really shocking to me. It's going against everything that I've studied so far, which is really disturbing. But, you know, if we find something that works and it's beneficial, I'm all for it. So we're going to continue down this road and try to do the best that we can, trying to figure out this technology. It's probably going to be a little bit more expensive to begin with because drone applications cost anywhere between $5 and $10 more than a ground application at this point. I expect those costs to go down over time. And I can say that because my colleagues left that have the drones.
Why
Yes.
is it illegal?
Why is it illegal?
Yeah.
Because the label says it's not an allowable application. So the herbicide label is a federal regulation, and if it says specifically that you cannot do X, Y, or Z, and you do X, Y, or Z, you can be fined heavily by EPA. Any questions?
Have you done any work with the granular smutgrass? Is that treatment or?
Have I done any work with the granular
We read in a magazine
herbicide?
they had a granular
So
chemical for smutgrass.
there's a couple different products of dry material. So there is dry flowable hexazinone, which is Velpar, just in a dry. They are granules. You still have to mix those with water and spray that. There is a pellet.
Okay.
Pronon Power Pellet is something that you can use. I wish I remembered these figures, but if you put one pellet in a clump, you are putting about 200 pounds to the acre of hexazinone, which is 200 times more than what you need, basically. So I've been taking those pellets and breaking them into quarters and putting them directly in the center of a clump and letting it do its thing, and it works really well.
You need the manufacturer to build 1/4 size pellets.
I want little pellets and air guns so I can shoot them and make me feel better.
Okay.
Quick question.
Yes, sir.
You say you need to have Valpar down and have a 1/2 inch to 3 inch rainfall. What if you were to put it down after the rainfall?
So the question,
You had an inch rainfall, put it down after that, right after that.
the question is, I'm saying that I need 1/4 of an inch to 3 inches of rainfall for Velpar to work after application. What if the rainfall happens before I applied it and then didn't get rainfall?
Yes.
Okay,
No, the rainfall, you got 1 inch on the ground
I got 1 inch on the ground,
and you put your Valpar.
put the Velpar out,
Right.
and no rainfall after that.
Well, you know, sometime. Down the
Sometimes.
road.
Okay. If you got an inch of rainfall, the ground's wet, but not super saturated, you still need some rainfall to get that herbicide into the soil because we're killing smutgrass by root uptake. Now, we also get good broadleaf control with Velpar too, but that's primarily uptake through the leaves, not so much the root system. We're killing smutgrass through the root system. Okay, so if it was another thing, let me go back. If I sprayed today and I got a 1/2 inch of rainfall tomorrow, would I get great control? I'd say probably 60 or 70%. Not like we would in July. And why is that? 2 reasons. If we get a 1/2 inch of rainfall in this dry soil right now, what's happening? Most of it's being repelled. It's not really soaking in, right? But once the soil starts to get more saturated and rain starts actually going into the soil profile, it's taking more herbicide with it, okay? So we tend to get the most control, best control, when we have almost standing water in the pasture. And then we get a little bit of rain after that. Like I said, this stuff is so finicky, and I still don't understand why the drone works so much better than my ground applications down that way. But it happened. Yes, ma'am.
I have a lot of experience with the smutgrass because the place we bought was inundated with it, and I cannot afford to renovate it because I've been reading your research for years actually. And I actually use a weed wiper that I created because I couldn't afford to go buy a weed wiper like by Smugglers and still say it's out there, but it's like $4,000.
Right.
I made one, and it is a vertical feed growth rate system, and will tell you it's working. It's working. Before that, I would literally walk and spot spray every single plant, and that's how I've been able to get it under control slowly over time, and then fertilizing after the application, wait until the plants die, then fertilize, and I've been able to keep from having the thistles, any of that coming up, and then I was out there, and I'll tell you, physically hand pulling anything else that came up. It's a lot of work, but it's under control, and I've pretty much, I will tell you, I overseed my Bahia pasture last year, and I have Smutgrass coming up in there. But I will tell you that is because I was mandated to do that. So, and I drag my pastures. I know not to drag when you're seeding, only drag when it's dormant, just like, you know. I'll tell you that I graze it, and then I will hit it with hexes. Anyway, I will weed wipe with that when it's getting, because the one I have is you can use with standing water, and I was afraid to use the Velpar Sandwich because I have had where I've flooded. And I was glad that I chose to use that this fall because we were flooded. We look like an island. And so the product I use is allowed to be used safely around ponds, and I weed wipe with that. It's the first year I've done it. And I write my trials down. I've actually kept a log from the beginning of time when I started this, from when I was spot treating to now weed wiping. And I will tell you, the weed wiping works, and I use my truck. Don't use my tractor because honestly, I have a 1972 with fumes coming out of it like nobody's business, and so I don't want to be on that for hours. I use it for my hay and stuff. I use my truck, and I put the tailgate down. I hang 2 chains. I drop it to the level of the Smutgrass. I go across it at 5 miles per hour. I literally have long ones of this. And then I go back and I do 2 passes. I've read in your thing or someone did. I picked up a brochure actually at Arcadia Stockyard. You had a flyer there years ago. You put together, I believe it was you put it together, and it was saying to make 2 passes. So I did, and I recorded it. And I also tried 1 pass because I'm one of those people, I gotta try it. And then I tried 2 passes. 2 passes gets it. I've also tried after a rain, just because I'm having to hit it when I can. So, I mean, I will tell you a weed wiper works, and I created a weed wiper with my husband, thanks to my husband. We found a guy online on YouTube who made it, and we pulled up the stuff. We went and bought everything at Ace Hardware, and built it, and for about $175, and that's what I use. So.
Well, awesome. Thank you. I didn't talk about wiping because most people get frustrated with wiping, but this is a success story of using a wiper and being able to wipe Smutgrass selectively and do a good job over time. Thank you for sharing that because it makes me feel good to hear that people are actually using our research.
What's the chemical you use with it? You use Roundup?
With the
Wiper.
With the wiper, you can use Roundup, and we've actually used hexazinone as well. And both of them, still think you need the rainfall with hexazinone with the wiper, but glyphosate and hexazinone will do both do well.
Best time of year?
Actively growing. So that's the key with using the wiper is it has to be actively growing. If I tried to wipe this right here, we're wiping dead material. We're not really wiping actively growing material. All right. Well, thank you.